Hi guys, back once again for the latest in my series of videos. Previous to this we've had videos on making stab chords, cutting up vocals, making the bass sound and also arranging. I finally got to my arrangement, which I'm happy with the drum fills and transitions and levels etc. all in sort of place. So now I'm going to get down to the mix down point. Okay, so in our arrange window you can see here we've got 1 up to 51 tracks. Now obviously it looks like there's a lot of these tracks that are hidden. So in the mixer window you can see that the kick drum relates to channel 1, low tom, channel 2, etc, etc, etc. So to make this simplistic, what I like to do is I like to route similar sounds to a bus, and then I'll create like a little sub mix, which is this lot up here from these channels all the way through to here. So you can see I've got about 12 channels to be mixing with. These buses here are my effects that I've got on auxiliary sends. So I've got a general reverb, a stereo delay, a custom made reverb for the vocals, and also a custom made reverb for the drums. And I can put these on. For example, this reverb is bus 1, as you can see there. And when I use that, I can go to bus 1 and I can alter the amount I need on there. Alright, so to start with, before I go any further, you can see today I've got my Deep House Mixdown hat on. Very, very important. So from that point, we'll go on to the start of the mixdown. Now what I do is, it's pretty general really. A lot of you are obviously already going to know this, but in house music, this is a deep house track. The kick and the bass are the two most prominent aspects of the sound really. So I'm going to start with getting my kick spot on, and then I'll mix everything else around that. Okay, here's the kick drum. Okay, so here in my kick channel I've also got the low tom, that's routed there as well. The kick is quite a subby sort of, lots of energy around the bottom of the track. So the tom-tom part is just there really for a bit of syncopation, a bit of movement in the kick drum part. So I don't want it to interfere too much with the kick. So as you can see here on the low tom, I've just got a little EQ there where I've rolled off a lot of the bottom end, so it doesn't interfere too much. Okay, I'm using a FabFilter EQ plugin on the kick. As you can see, I've boosted around about the sort of 50 Hertz part of the track of the sound, and I've got a cut here around about the sort of 400 Hertz. That's because, took that off for a minute. There's kind of like a sort of like a dirty noise in there that I don't really want, so I thought I'm going to take that out. As a general rule, I'm cutting the low end at round about sort of, actually I've rolled off from about 100 downwards, down to there about, what's that, about 25, 30. You realise why I've done that later, but I've also, obviously I've added that energy there at 50 Hertz, because that's the bit of the sound that I feel that needs to be poking through. We go to the bass line. And I'll look at the EQ on there. You see, I've kind of mirrored it really. So the bit that I've cut out of the kick there, I've pushed up on the bass line. So around about sort of 200 Hertz. There's a little notch there where I've just started to nip out a little bit of the bass frequency around about sort of 75 Hertz. And and that kind of mirrors the bit that I've put in on the kick. This kind of just helps separate the kick and the bass a little bit. Okay, further to that, I've got this nice sort of phase splitter plug-in where it's easier to show you if I just bypass it. Okay, so there's my bass sound. Just kind of helps me separate that from the kick a little bit more. And finally on the bass, I've got this Bass Rider plug-in. As you can see, it's going to do a lot more reduction when the bass notes are long and louder, for example. And again, that helps make sure that the bottom end doesn't get out of control. Alright, so now we've got our kick and bass down. We'll add the hats in. Right, let's have a little quick look at the hats. I've just got a plain Logic plugin on this, actually EQ plugin. Obviously cut the bottom end, cut a little bit of the top, and it's just that frequency there that I quite like. It's that kind of crispness in the hat part that I thought needs a little bit of accentuating, so I boosted that there. Go down to the snare, standard 909 snare, again a Logic EQ. Alright, so we've got a little bit of 500 being boost there. With a wide Q factor, so it's not just going to pick that particular frequency, it's going to affect frequencies either side of it as well. I've cut the top end a little bit to allow a little bit of room for the hats. Cut the bottom end, and normally I would cut the tops as well, but because it's a kind of a toppy sound, I'm going to leave that on there. So kick, hats, and finally clap. Right, so the clap, as you can see in the arrangement there, I've got this part here, which is a looped clap. Let's hear that on its own. It's got that nice sort of percussive sound in with a clap loop. But you combine that with the program clap. It's quite a nice little sound. Alright, on the EQ side, what I've got here is I've cut everything round about sort of 200 Hertz really. I don't need any of that. So what I'll do is I'll move the low cut up until it starts altering the character of the sound. Right, that's really losing a bit of that crunch there. So round about there is good for me. I've also got a split EQ around this band here, where I've actually boosted the middle part of the sound, and the bits at the side, I left and right, but both together, not just left and not just right. The bits to the side I've cut. That's without the EQ. And that's with the EQ. Right, let's listen to all the drums together. Sounding nice and crisp. I can hear all aspects of the drums. Kicks punching through nicely. I can hear what the snare and the hats are pulling nicely, giving me that nice sort of shuffle and shake. And the clap is nice and crunchy on that backbeat. Wicked. Okay, So now I've got my drums ready. Next element would be the bass. Well, sorry, we've done the bass. Let's hear it with the bass. Wicked. Okay, so in terms of this arrangement, let's just look at the arrange window again. As you notice, I've colour coded as I normally do. Everything up here is drums basically. So this lot, whoops. So this lot down here is all going to be drums. Below that are the bass lines, colour coded in green, or different colours for different sections of the track really. In terms of music, I've only got the save chord. I've got a string part which comes in twice in the track, as you can see. A different stab chord part, and this save chord which is like a piano-y sort of sound. So let's have a look first of all at this section here, which is save chord 1. So I can around that section there. Now, I've got this really nice Jack Puig plugin, is it? Waves plugin? Jack Joseph Puig, sorry. And I've chosen a preset here, which has got a little compressor on it, a little bit of EQ control. It's got some reverb, which is called space, doubler, presence, which is like kind of an EQ control, and girth, which kind of makes it fat at the bottom end. So I'll bypass that. It's quite a subtle sort of difference really. You can hear how it makes the sort of mid sound a little bit warmer. But what I have done is I've rolled off quite a bit of the bottom because I don't want any of that sort of rubbish interfering with my bass line. So let's just mix that back with the bass again now. Can you hear that? There's no frequencies in the stab chord sound that are going to interfere with the bass. Lets the bass punch right through. Wee bit of clip in there, 0.5, not really worried about that. Okay, so now we've got our bass, we've got our basic drums in, we've got our bass in, and we've got the primary stab chord part, which is basically, in essence, the groove of the track. We'll move forward to this section, say up here a little bit. Just mute these other parts for a minute, don't get in the way. We'll bring these in individually. Got a subtle bit of reverb on there. Notice that? Actually, while we're here, let's just have a look at the reverb setting that I've got. I've got a Lexicon plugin, and I've chosen a large hall. Nice thing about this plugin, you've got plenty of control over the actual reverb. We've got reverb time, we've got the cut-off frequency of the output of the reverb, how much it diffuses, etc, etc. It's a really nice plugin. You've probably got these presets on various other reverb plugins as well, but since I got this plugin, I've never looked back. So, okay, this green section here, save chord 5, is actually like a piano sound. Again, I've got two parts playing at sort of almost the same time. I don't want them to be clashing, I don't want them to be phasing. I need them to both have their sort of own little EQ pocket. So what I've done here with the piano sound, rolled off loads of the bottom end. Let's just see how much I've rolled off there. You hear all that sort of below 200 hertz frequency. Got to get rid of that, because I know that's just going to cause a lot of problems in the bottom end of the track. Bearing in mind I've got kick drum, I've got tom-toms, I've got bass line, loads and loads of stuff to create mud, and we don't want mud. So I've rolled it off. And I thought that the part of the track which is giving me the most energy in this piano sound is around about here, which is the sort of 2K mark. So I've given it a nice little boost, rolled off the Q factor, so we're only boosting sort of round about 2K and maybe a few hundred hertz either side. Another little boost down there as well. I did that maybe because it just sounded good. So with my stab sound. You know, the bass is still pumping through there. Sounds good. Ultimately, I would say on Mixdown, trust your ears, you know. It sounds good, go with it. Don't worry about the rules, etc. Just go with it. Okay, so looking down here on my mixer, I've got strings which are muted. Strings only appear twice in the track, but it's a nice sort of high pulsing string just to give a bit of tension. Let's have a listen to where that comes in. Okay, not too much going on there. In fact, I've got no EQ on that. It sounds great. It sits in perfectly with the mix there. Just a question of getting the level right, really. Sounds great. Wicked. Okay, so that brings us finally onto the vocal parts. Now let's have a quick look at the arrangement. So my vocals are this lot here, really. We've got, this is the bit where the vocals first come in. Looking at that, it's my vocal cut channel. Save me. Save me. Save me. Right, so on that channel, I could have put this processing over here, the high pass filter and the echo. I could have actually put that on the bus channel, but it's actually on the original channel strip, because on these channels here I haven't got the same processing, but they're still going to be going to the vocal cuts bus. So we just cycle this little bit here. Save me. It's a bit more busy around here. You got that's a lie. You got that's a lie. Okay, so what I've used on this section on the vocal cuts channel, again, it's the JJP vocals plugin. I quite like this. It's got a nice little slider there called Magic, which is basically magic. It just makes it sound nice. You got. So here's my vocal cuts. You got. Let's bypass the plugin. You got. That's a lie. You notice in my channel, on the bus channel there, I've got my vocal reverb and I've got a bit of stereo delay, just to give it a bit of movement in the arrangement, really. But
You got that's a lie.
again, these are all sort of subtle differences, really.
You got that's a lie. You got that's a lie.
Feels like it's boosting around about sort of 500 to 1000k, that sort of area.
You got that's a lie.
Like really, I'd like to be taking a bit of that low off.
You got that's a lie. You got that's a lie.
Okay, so that sounded pretty good. I mean, it's such a negligible part, really, of the whole track. But go back to my mixer. Listen to it. So really, all we're concerned with here is actually the level of the vocal part against the stabs and the bass and the drums. When I'm trying to achieve levels, this is a good point at this stage here. I normally start off with a fader at 0, and I'll play it. I'll shut my eyes. I've got my cans on, even if I haven't. And I'll just bring the level up slowly until I think it's just about where it needs to be. That sounds about right. Okay, back to the arrangement window. Okay, we've got the lead vocal part here, which is not a programmed in vocal cut. It's actually a piece of audio. We're going to the arrangement window. You can see I've got a bit of processing there. So we've got an auto filter at the cut-off low after, what would that be? About 16 bars of filter down low. It's going to creep up in the breakdown here to up high. So let's just cycle that vocal part round about here.
You got to save me, save me. Somebody got to save me, save me. You got to save me. Somebody gotta save my soul. Save me, save me.
Okay, how did I choose the processing to put on this? Again, I've got the JJP vocal plugin on this. Lots of magic, because we like magic. Got the highs up there, lows cut, bit of a de-esser on there, presence. Let's actually here, let's have a quick listen to see what these different parameters are going to do.
Save me, save me. You got to save me, save me. Somebody got to save me, save me. You got to save me. Somebody gotta save my soul. Save me, save me. You got to save me, save me. Somebody got to save me, save me. You got to save me. Somebody gotta save my soul. Save me.
Okay, so there you get the idea of how I've come to that. Listen, it's objective. At the end of the day, this sounds good for me. Someone might listen to this vocal and say, oh, it's a bit toppy, it's a bit MIDI, you need a bit more warmth in there, whatever. But I've decided in the context of my mix that the vocal sounds right just there.
Save me, save me. You got to save me, save me. Somebody got to save me.
But once again, really, it's about listening for the balance, the relative levels of each component.
You got to save me. Somebody got to save my soul.
Okay, well finally, just want to mix in my transition effects, which are these, the little audio samples of various different noises to carry me from one part to the next. Generally, I like these to be quite trippy but low in the mix. So I've got a big reverb on there, loads of, and I've got a stereo delay on there as well. So they're going to sound like this. They're just there really to give you a feeling of going from one section to the next. So I don't want those too high in the mix. So let's see how they work out. It's about the right level. I'll sort of check this, cross-check this as I go along through the track. One other point to note, I think it's in my shaky part. I noticed this. Where are we? Okay, got shakers there. You see I've panned this shaker part left, and as we get into the track a little bit, we've got this part here panned right. But together, just a nice little bit of movement. You've got to remember that when we're doing a mix down, you're creating a soundscape. So you want certain elements to appear that they're going to be closer to you, certain elements further back, some side to side, some louder, some softer, and some elements actually moving from side to side or front to back. So if we're all standing, if you imagine a crowd of people and they're all standing in a straight line in front of you, it'd be quite boring. But we like to put, say, the fat people in the middle at the front, and the skinny people at the sides, and the tall people maybe at the back, etc., etc. Do you get where I'm coming from? Okay, normally at this point now I've sort of been in my mixer. Let's turn the arrangements. Right, so now I've just got my buses. Right, so sort of in summary really, we start with the kick drum part. And what I like to do is, when I'm mixing my kick drum, I want to get a good level. I want plenty of headroom there. So as you can see, it's sort of minus 2.7 there. So I've got plenty of room to play with. If once I've got my mix down done, and I need to turn up the kick, there's a little bit of space to go. I've added in my bass, making sure that they're working well together. Both got their own space. Rest of the drums. Added my stab chord or musical part in. Got my vocals in. Transition effects. So there you go. Mix is done. Sometimes at this point here, I would actually reset all the faders down to 0 and push them back and just do a rebalance, because you can get clouded sometimes. And also, on a final note, I would always advise that when you're doing your track, finish the arrangement, get it sounding exactly how you want it, i.e. drum fills, transitions, the individual processing on all the tracks, and then leave it for a day. Come back a day later and listen to it absolutely from scratch with fresh ears. Then you start your mix down. After that process, what I normally do then is I'll convert it to an MP3, I'll stick it on my phone, and then I'll play it in various different environments, i.e. an iPod dock, I'll play it off my phone, depends on what kind of track it is, I'll play it in the car, in the van, and generally over the course of 3 or 4 days of listening to the track constantly, you'll hear if there's any parts that are going to be too loud, any transitions are wrong, bum notes that might stick out, delays that are too trippy, etc., etc., etc. And then you can come back into your studio environment and just analyse and sort of home in on those parts that you found that could be at fault. Okay, so there you go. There's my dub mix. At some point, I'm going to stick this up on my SoundCloud page, possibly even on my website. And actually, might as well tell you right now, this is a mix for an actual label. So when this is going to be released, I'll sort of give you a heads up on it, and you'll be able to buy this from Traxsource and Beatport and all other download stores. So okay, that's all for now. That's the mixing down the dub mix. I hope I've covered everything. If anybody wants to message me to let me know if there's anything else that you'd like me to cover, then that's fine. Apart from that, I hope you've enjoyed it, and please subscribe to my channel. That's all. Cheers.